Once the siren starts wailing, Israelis have about 13 minutes to get into a shelter, because that's the amount of time it takes for an Iranian ballistic missile to reach this country.
Iran said that the reason for them striking Israel with ballistic missile was a retaliation for Israel bombing the Iranian embassy in Damascus. Everyone could recall that Israel struck Iranian embassy on April 1st, 2024, eliminating the two top Iranian generals, and Iran vowed to retaliate. Let's watch the extent of these measures across Israel. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If today is your first time, you're welcome. Let's dive into the news and see what's going on right now in Israel.
The Israelis don't want the Iranians to hear details about where exactly was struck, but local television networks are reporting unprecedented consequences in terms of damage and destruction.
Just for your information, once the siren starts, the Israelites have only 13 minutes to get into the shelter. That's the only amount of time needed for taking shelter. Let's continue.
This evening we were the remnants of missiles hit by Israeli interceptors. They have a high success rate, but they don't strike everything incoming. Here, seconds after two interceptors were fired from close to military headquarters, an Iranian missile came in.
Israel intercepting right away.
Iranians fired an estimated 150 ballistic missiles. The Israelis don't want the Iranians to hear details about where exactly was struck, but local television networks are reporting unprecedented consequences in terms of damage and destruction. Today began with Israel's most comprehensive attack ever on important places and people in Iran, and will continue the assault in broad daylight. Israel.
Out of curiosity, do you think the Iranian has enough ballistic missile to overwhelm the Israel's defense? Let's find out. Israel targets.
Target of all was probably the nuclear plant at Natanz, about 130 miles southeast of Tehran. It's where most of Iran's centrifuges have been set up to enrich uranium, perhaps up to weapons grade. For the Israelis, Natanz is the heart of the matter.
So let's hear what the President Benjamin Netanyahu has to say about stopping Iran.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival.
As a retaliation, Israel bombed an Iran nuclear plant and eliminated 6 nuclear scientists and some of the military top leaders. Let's continue.
After key personnel killing at least 6 nuclear scientists and some of the military's top brass, including the commander of the Republican Guard, General Hussein Salami, and General Mohammad Bagheri, the chief of staff of Iran's armed forces.
So let's hear how the Iranian President Massoud described Israel's attack today.
The Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has described the attack as criminal. The Islamic Republic of Iran's legitimate and powerful response will make the enemy regret its stupid act, he said. The IDF have released this footage of drone strikes on missile transporters and launchers. Remarkably, it appears the drones were dispatched locally by Mossad agents actually on the ground in Iran. For their part, the Americans say they were not involved in any of this, although President Trump has already warned Iran there may be more to come. On social media, he said, "They are all dead now and it will only get worse, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal. Iran must make a deal before there's nothing left." This morning, we watched Israeli warplanes streak across the sky to meet incoming drones, Iran's first volley of retaliatory fire. This evening, they unleashed their second and third volleys, and some of this country's worst fears have been realized. Tonight, Israel and Iran are at war.
Israel said that Iran has crossed multiple red lines.
Have been crossed, and the damage is still being assessed tonight in Israel. You know, have a look at this shot there, and actually here's the live picture from what appears to be a residential building, which is right next to the Ministry of Defense. It appears that Iran may well have been trying to strike the Ministry of Defense, but instead hit an apartment block nearby. This means that perhaps red lines in Israel's mind have been crossed, a built-up area, perhaps an attempt to strike government infrastructure. Pretty clear, inviting the people of Iran to overthrow the government there, to overthrow the regime. And so the intentions of the Israeli government in this operation are clear. What is less clear is where this will end. As well, let's look at this map, because you see the regional picture where so many of their proxies are in place but have been weakened. Hezbollah in Lebanon, in Gaza, Hamas as well, the Houthis in Yemen, and zoom in and we see the picture here in Iran where so many of those sites were struck overnight. Almost certainly now, though, in the next few hours, we expect
to see what President Trump intends to do next. Stacey from Washington have this to say.
Donald Trump pledged to be the president to bring peace to the Middle East. But tonight, make no mistake, the US is involved in perhaps one of the biggest military escalations that we've seen in that region, with US forces now directly involved in helping to intercept missiles fired by Iran into Israel. A White House official has told us tonight that the president has spoken on the phone with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We don't have any more details about that call, but despite the events of the last 24 hours, President Trump has still been speaking today about striking a nuclear deal with Iran. He doesn't think that all is lost here, and far from derailing the ongoing talks, he perhaps hopes or even believes that this escalation could force the Iranians back around the negotiating table. We know that a US delegation is planning to travel to Oman at the weekend, where talks are scheduled to resume on Sunday, but the Iranians are saying that those talks are off.
With all this tension, let's hear what John is saying from Tel Aviv.
3 hours ago, things can go downhill within minutes. Now, the IDF are claiming that of the 150 Iranian ballistic missiles sent this way, they intercepted 97%, which means something like 5 they tried to hit got through. Regarding the human toll, Julie, we're hearing that 44 people have been hospitalized and there's been 1 fatality. That casualty number is low because every Israeli building, every Israeli home has a bomb shelter in it. And after more than 18 months of missile attacks by Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis and Iran, Israelis know to get into those bomb shelters pretty quickly when the alarm sounds. Now, I think today's events over the next 24 hours will probably be repeated. There'll be more Israeli strikes on Iran, and the Iranians will try to hit back. Since the last big Iranian barrage on this country in October last year, the Americans estimate that the Iranians have manufactured something like 50 new ballistic missiles every month. That's 400 new missiles on top of their already large arsenal. For the Israelis, that could be a big problem.
Where is the wider global perspective on this issue? Let's hear Emma from Istanbul.
Well, I think in terms of the room for things to be pulled back, it's significantly smaller than the room for things to go horribly wrong and escalate in this situation. Because as we've seen in the actions and the images of the past 24 hours, we have 2 sides here who are on very much an escalatory ladder and don't seem to be taking much note of the voices like those from other world leaders who are calling for some form of de-escalation. In fact, the Iranians very much today reacting with a sense of anger about those calls, saying that they're under attack and why should they even consider de-escalation. Now, the real issue is a misstep, because if there is a misstep in this situation, it will really raise the stakes so very significantly. We have seen over so many months and years these two countries waging a proxy war, but the difference now is that they are going head to head on their own territories, and they are doing it with a real sense of everything to play for. And I think that we have to remember how we got to this position in the first place. You know, Iran were pretty much obliging with the nuclear deal until 2018, when Donald Trump pulled out of it. He now says that he wants to get them back into some kind of order, and clearly feels that he can perhaps use Israel to bomb Iran back to the negotiating table. That could be an incredibly risky strategy, and the man who came into his presidency saying that he didn't want to be involved in forever wars in the Middle East may be at the heart of one.
In summary, Iran said they are no longer on the negotiating table with Trump when they are being attacked, and vowed that the enemy will be punished. Please follow for more. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share this video.